2026 is not coming to save you. It's coming to expose which version of you is in control. Let me tell you something most people won't tell you. Your biggest enemy in 2026 is not the economy. It's not competition. It's not lack of opportunity. Your biggest enemy is the weak version of yourself, the version that wants comfort over commitment, the version that negotiates with discipline, the version that says, I'll start tomorrow. Here's the truth. There are two versions of you waking up every single day. One version wants ease. The other version wants excellence. And they are both hungry, but only one of them should be fed. The weak version doesn't destroy your life loudly. It doesn't announce itself. It whispers, skip today, you deserve a break. It's not the right time. Other people have it easier. And if you listen long enough, you'll wake up one day wondering how years passed with nothing to show for it. See, discipline isn't about motivation. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is a decision. Strong people don't feel different. They act different. They do what's required before they feel ready. They work when it's boring. They show up when no one is watching. And that's why their results look lucky from the outside. Let me be clear. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your standards. If your standards allow excuses, you will collect explanations instead of results. And your environment, it's either sharpening you or sedating you. Who you listen to, what you scroll, what you tolerate. If your circle normalizes weakness, discipline will always feel strange. But if your circle respects growth, excuses will start to feel embarrassing. Now here's the part most people avoid. Pain is unavoidable. You will either feel the pain of discipline now or the pain of regret later. One pain builds you, the other breaks you. So choose wisely, because the version of you standing at the end of 2026, stronger, wiser, disciplined, confident, that version is watching you right now. And that future you has one request. Don't quit. Don't negotiate with weakness. Don't betray your potential for temporary comfort. Defeat the weak version of yourself, not once, but daily. Because when you win that battle, everything else becomes possible. And 2026 won't just be another year. It will be the year you finally became who you were meant to be. There are two versions of you living inside the same body, waking up at the same time, breathing the same air, looking at the same opportunities, but responding to life in completely different ways. One version wants comfort. The other wants growth. One wants what's easy. The other wants what's required. And whether you realize it or not, these two versions are in a quiet but constant battle every single day. The weak version of you isn't evil. It's familiar. It's the version that wants to stay safe, avoid pain, and seek approval. It tells you to delay instead of decide. It convinces you that rest is needed when what you really need is discipline. It tells you that tomorrow will be better, that you'll start when conditions improve, when you feel more confident, when things slow down. This version of you is persuasive because it sounds reasonable. It doesn't scream, it whispers. And that's why it wins for most people. The strong version of you is very different. It doesn't beg. It doesn't make excuses. It understands something the weak version refuses to accept. Growth is uncomfortable, progress is inconvenient, and success demands sacrifice. This version knows that feelings are unreliable, but commitments are powerful. It doesn't wait to feel ready. It moves first and lets confidence catch up later. It understands that consistency beats intensity and that boring daily actions build extraordinary outcomes. Here's the truth most people avoid. Both versions of you are fed by your daily choices. Every time you hit snooze instead of getting up, the weak version gets stronger. Every time you avoid a difficult conversation, procrastinate on an important task, or choose short-term pleasure over long-term purpose, you reinforce that weaker identity. But every time you do the hard thing when no one is watching, every time you keep a promise to yourself, every time you act in alignment with who you want to become instead of who you've been, the strong version grows. You don't wake up one day and magically become disciplined. You build discipline by starving the weak version and feeding the strong one. And the uncomfortable part is this: the weak version will fight hardest right before you break through. It will remind you of past failures. It will question your worth. It will try to negotiate, asking you to slow down, ease up, or settle. But negotiation with weakness always leads to regret. The strongest people aren't different from you. They just decided which version of themselves was in charge. They stopped letting emotions drive decisions and started letting standards do the talking. They understood that every small choice was a vote for the person they were becoming. Not someday. Today, the real question isn't whether you have potential. You do. The real question is which version of you is winning right now. Because the future doesn't respond to intentions. It responds to identity. And the version of you that you consistently act from is the version that will define your results in 2026 and beyond. Your weakest habits rarely announce themselves as a problem. They don't crash into your life like a disaster or show up wearing warning signs. They slip in quietly, disguised as comfort, routine, and harmless choices. That's what makes them so dangerous. They don't look like destruction in the moment, but over time, they quietly drain your potential, your confidence, and your future. The most expensive bits in your life are not always the obvious ones. It's not just the big mistakes that cost you, it's the small patterns you repeat without thinking, the extra hour wasted scrolling, the task you delay even though you know it matters, the conversation you avoid because it feels uncomfortable. Each of these moments feels insignificant on its own, but stacked together, they create a life that falls far below what you're capable of living. Weak habits are subtle because they feel familiar. They tell you you're resting when you're actually avoiding responsibility. They convince you that you're planning when you're really procrastinating. They whisper that you have time, that urgency can wait, that discipline can start later, and because there's no immediate penalty, you assume there's no real cost, but the bill always comes due, just not right away. What makes weak habits especially dangerous is that they don't steal from you all at once. They take a little every day, a little focus, a little energy, a little self-trust. Over time, you stop believing in your own ability to follow through. You start lowering your standards, not because you want less, but because it hurts to want more and repeatedly disappoint yourself. That quiet erosion of self-belief is one of the most expensive prices you can pay. Every habit is training you for something. The habits you tolerate are rehearsing your future. When you repeatedly choose convenience over commitment, you're training yourself to quit when things get hard. When you ignore the small disciplines, waking up on time, finishing what you start, doing the uncomfortable work, you're practicing inconsistency. And practice, whether intentional or not, always produces results. The real danger isn't that weak habits slow you down. It's that they normalize mediocrity. After a while, what once felt unacceptable starts to feel normal. You stop being shocked by your own delays, your own excuses, your own lack of progress. And when mediocrity feels normal, excellence feels unrealistic, even though it's still possible. The truth is, strong lives are built on small, often boring disciplines, and weak lives are destroyed by small, seemingly harmless choices. No one loses their future overnight. They lose it in inches through habits they refuse to confront because they didn't look urgent. If you want to change where your life is going, you don't start with massive transformations. You start by identifying the quiet habits that are costing you the most and making a decision to stop tolerating them. Because once you become aware of the cost, comfort is no longer harmless. And every small decision becomes a chance to reclaim your power. Discipline is often misunderstood. People talk about it as if it's something you're either born with or without, as if some people are naturally wired to be consistent, focused, and driven, while others are simply not. That belief is one of the most damaging lies you can accept, because it too RNS discipline into an identity instead of a choice. Discipline is not who you are. It is what you do again and again, especially when you don't feel like doing it. No one wakes up disciplined. What actually happens is far less glamorous. People wake up tired, unmotivated, distracted. The difference is not in how they feel, but in what they decide. Discipline shows up in the moment you choose action over emotion. It's the decision to get up when staying in bed feels better, to start the task when avoidance feels easier, to continue when quitting would bring instant relief. These moments don't feel heroic, they feel ordinary. And that's why most people underestimate their power. If discipline were a personality trait, it would be consistent regardless of circumstances. But real discipline fluctuates with decisions. The same person can be disciplined in one season and undisciplined in another, not because their personality changed, but because their standards did. Standards determine behavior. When your standards are non-negotiable, discipline becomes automatic. When your standards are flexible, discipline becomes optional. And optional discipline disappears the moment discomfort shows up. The uncomfortable truth is that discipline doesn't require motivation, inspiration, or confidence. It requires agreement with yourself. An agreement that your long-term goals matter more than your short-term feelings. Every time you keep that agreement, you strengthen your ability to trust why? Ourself. Every time you break it, you make the next decision harder. This is why discipline compounds, not just in results, but in identity. You don't become disciplined by feeling disciplined. You become disciplined by acting disciplined, even when it feels forced at first. People often say they're not disciplined, but what they really mean is that they've practiced avoiding discomfort for a long time. Avoidance becomes a habit, and habits start to feel like personality, but habits can be replaced. The moment you start choosing what's necessary over what's comfortable, you begin rewriting that internal story, slowly, quietly, but permanently. Discipline also doesn't demand perfection, it demands consistency. Missing a day doesn't destroy discipline, quitting does. The disciplined person isn't the one who never fails, but the one who refuses to let failure become an excuse to stop. They return to the standard again and again, understanding that progress is built through repetition, not intensity. At its core, discipline is self-respect in action. It's you proving to yourself that your word matters, that your future is worth effort, and that your comfort does not outrank your potential. And when you make that decision daily, especially on the days it feels unnecessary, you stop hoping for change and start becoming it. Your environment is constantly shaping you, whether you are aware of it or not. It influences how you think, how you act, what you believe is possible, and what you accept as normal. Most people focus on willpower when they want to change their lives, but they ignore the silent force that either supports or sabotages them every single day. Your environment is never neutral. It is either a weapon working for you or a trap working against you. Everything around you is sending signals. The people you spend time with, the conversations you listen to, the content you consume, and the standards you are exposed to all leave an imprint. If your environment rewards excuses, weakness will feel justified. If your environment normalizes procrastination, urgency will feel unnecessary. Over time, you begin to adopt behaviors and beliefs that are reinforced around you, not because you consciously choose them, but because repetition makes them feel normal. This is why talented people often stay stuck. It's not that they lack ability, it's that their surroundings quietly pull them back into old patterns. When the people around you don't challenge you, you stop challenging yourself. When comfort is celebrated more than growth, discipline starts to feel extreme. You may have big goals, but if your daily environment contradicts those goals, your environment will win every time. Your environment also includes what you allow into your mind, what you watch, what you scroll, what you listen to when no one is watching. These inputs shape your expectations and your energy. Constant exposure to distraction trains your mind to avoid focus. Constant exposure to negativity trains you to expect failure. Over time, you start living according to the limits you've absorbed rather than the potential you actually have. A powerful environment does the opposite. It raises your standards without needing to say much. It makes discipline feel normal and excuses feel uncomfortable. When you're around people who are consistent, intentional, and growth-focused, you don't need to be motivated, you're reminded. Their actions recalibrate what you believe is possible. In the right environment, effort feels expected, not exceptional. The mistake many people make is waiting to feel strong enough to change before changing their environment. In reality, you change your environment first so it can make you stronger. You remove unnecessary distractions. You create friction for bad habits and ease for good ones. You spend less time in places that drain you and more time in places that sharpen you. These decisions may feel small, but they are strategic. Your environment doesn't just influence your actions, it influences your identity. Over time, you become a reflection of what surrounds you. That's why changing your environment is one of the fastest ways to change your life. When your surroundings are aligned with who you want to become, progress stops feeling like a fight and starts feeling like momentum. In the end, you don't rise because you are stronger than your environment. You rise because you designed an environment that refuses to let you stay the same. Pain is not a possibility in life, it is a guarantee. No matter who you are, where you come from, or what you aim to achieve, pain will be part of your journey. The real difference between people who grow and people who stay stuck is not whether they experience pain, but which kind of pain they choose to live with. Every life carries a cost, and the only real choice you have is which cost you are willing to pay. There is the pain of discipline, and there is the pain of regret. The pain of discipline shows up early. It feels heavy at first because it demands effort, sacrifice, and consistency when comfort would be easier. It requires you to do things that stretch you, challenge you, and sometimes expose your weaknesses. This pain is uncomfortable, but it has a purpose. It builds strength, clarity, confidence, and self-respect. It leaves you better than it found you. The pain of regret is different. It doesn't arrive right away. It waits. It lets you believe that skipping the work today doesn't matter, that delaying the decision won't change much, that settling is harmless. But over time, regret grows heavier. It shows up as frustration with yourself, disappointment in missed opportunities, and the quiet question of what your life could have been if you had taken yourself more seriously. This pain doesn't sharpen you, it drains you. What makes this choice difficult is that the productive pain feels harder in the moment. Getting up early hurts more than sleeping in. Facing fear hurts more than avoiding it. Taking responsibility hurts more than making excuses. But those moments of discomfort are investments. You feel them now so you don't have to carry their consequences later. Regret, on the other hand, charges interest. The longer you delay discipline, the more expensive your future becomes. Most people don't fail because they chose pain. They fail because they chose the wrong kind. They avoided short-term discomfort and unknowingly signed up for long-term dissatisfaction. Over time, this creates a cycle where life feels heavy, not because it's demanding, but because it's unfulfilled. That weight is far harder to carry than the temporary strain of growth. Productive pain has an end. Regret does not. Discipline eventually becomes easier as strength builds and habits form. What once felt difficult becomes normal. Regret never softens. It resurfaces in moments of comparison, reflection, and quiet honesty. It reminds you of the effort you avoided and the potential you abandoned. Choosing productive pain is not about punishing yourself. It's about respecting yourself enough to endure discomfort for a greater outcome. It's about understanding that the struggle you avoid today will return tomorrow with interest, while the struggle you embrace today will repay you with progress. In the end, pain will visit you regardless. The question is whether it will leave you stronger or leave you stuck. The future you is closer than you think, and whether you realize it or not, that version of you is being shaped by the choices you are making right now. Not the big dramatic decisions you talk about, but the small, quiet ones you make when no one is watching. The moments when quitting feels reasonable. The moments when stopping feels justified. The moments when giving up would bring immediate relief. In those moments, the future you is silently begging you not to walk away. The future you understands what the present you cannot always see. It understands that the struggle you're in right now is not punishment, it's preparation. That the resistance you feel is not a sign to stop, but evidence that you're stretching beyond who you've been. The future you knows that if you quit now, the pain doesn't disappear, it just changes form. It becomes disappointment. It becomes regret. It becomes the quiet frustration of knowing you could have done more but didn't. Every time you feel tired, overwhelmed, or discouraged, that future version of you is watching closely. Not judging you, but depending on you. Depending on you to take one more step when it would be easier to sit down. Depending on you to show up one more day when progress feels invisible. Depending on you to stay committed, even when results haven't caught up to your effort yet. because the future you is built from follow-through, not feelings. Quitting is tempting because it offers instant comfort. It promises relief from pressure, effort, and uncertainty. But the future you knows that comfort gained by quitting is temporary, while the cost lasts much longer. The goals you abandon don't disappear. They linger. They resurface in moments of reflection, comparison, and quiet honesty. The future you would rather inherit scars from effort than questions from avoidance. There will be days when continuing feels pointless. Days when progress feels slow, when doubts are loud, and when your discipline feels fragile. On those days, the future you isn't asking for perfection. It's asking for persistence. It's asking you to keep going, even if the pace is slow, even if the results aren't visible yet. Because momentum is built by consistency, not intensity. The future you know something else too. The version of you that finishes is always stronger than the version that starts. Strength isn't formed at the beginning when excitement is high. It's formed in the middle, when motivation fades and commitment is tested. If you can survive that phase, you don't just reach the goal, you become someone capable of greater goals. One day, sooner than you think, you will look back at this season of your life, and the future you will either thank you for staying the course or wish you had. The difference between those two outcomes is not talent, luck, or timing. It's the decision to not quit when quitting felt justified. So when it gets hard, and it will, remember that someone is counting on you, not your friends, not your family, the person you are becoming. And that future version of you is begging you quietly but urgently to keep going. As you step into 2026, understand this clearly. The year itself will not change your life. You will. Nothing external is going to rescue you from habits you refuse to break or standards you refuse to raise. The outcome of 2026 will be decided in ordinary moments, by ordinary decisions, repeated with extraordinary consistency. You don't need a new personality. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need permission. What you need is the courage to stop negotiating with the weak version of yourself and the discipline to choose growth even when it's uncomfortable. Every day you wake up, you are casting a vote for the person you are becoming. Make sure those votes align with the future you say you want. Let 2026 be the year you stop running from discomfort and start using it. The year you choose productive pain over regret, standards over excuses, and action over intention. Because when you win the battle within, the world outside has no choice but to respond. Defeat the weak version of yourself, not once, not occasionally, but daily. And when you do, 2026 won't just mark the passage of time. It will mark the moment you finally stepped into your power.